This content was paid for by Netflix and created by Looper. The original Matrix film became a genre classic almost the second it hit theaters, and while fans are more divided on the existing two sequels, the Matrix trilogy as a whole has rightly earned a place of honor among the all-time great sci-fi franchises. Did you hear the news? In a 2016 survey conducted by Wrangler Jeans, 56% of participants admitted that, of all the many bodily offenses, loudly farting was by far the most embarrassing affront on the list. However, publicly passing gas must be child's play compared to the embarrassment of involuntarily emptying the tank on live TV, particularly if the infraction leads Rosie O'Donnell to comment ruefully about breakfast burritos. Want to insert yourself into a really humiliating scenario? How about involuntarily dropping a booty bomb in front of Anderson Cooper's piercing Baby Blues and their approximately 2.30 million dedicated viewers? Or unleashing a gut-busting gust right after waltzing to Moon River on Dancing with the Stars? Or, as was arguably the case with one particularly bumbling 2016 presidential candidate, farting while stoutly reciting scripture to Jeanine Pirro? It's a fact both fascinating and foul. A life-affirming number of celebs have suffered back-end blowouts on live TV. Since we imagine you're curious to know the culprits, we've gone ahead and done the dirty work. Fans were understandably excited when a new installment in the Matrix franchise was announced in mid-2019, which would reunite original cast members Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne with original writer and director Lana Wachowski, working solo this time, instead of alongside her sister Lily, as she did on the first three Matrix films. The global coronavirus pandemic that has had major repercussions on the film industry, significantly delaying numerous theatrical releases and shutting down various productions, including The Matrix 4, but even before that, the film's release date of May 21, 2021 seemed a long way off. By compiling their most heinous on-air honkers to date. As it says on Leslie Nielsen's gravestone, let rip. Mike Ditka dealt it, didn't he? There are questions. Whether the film manages to hit its original release date or gets delayed remains to be seen, but either way, it's a long time to wait for Matrix fans eager to return to the franchise. Fortunately, there are a number of films available to watch on Netflix right now that can help scratch that Matrix-shaped itch in one way or another while we anticipate the next installment in the adventures of Neo and Trinity. MFKZ, also known as Motherfuckers, the Japanese animated film MFKZ doesn't look a lot like The Matrix at first glance, but the two have more in common than initially meets the eye. MFKZ follows a young man named Angelino who lives in the alien-occupied Dark Meat City, and throughout the course of the film, realizes that he has unique powers that will enable him to fight back against the evil forces that control his city. MFKZ overlaps in a few places with The Matrix, with the most obvious intersection being in its reliance on the Chosen One trope, as both Angelino and Neo discover previously hidden abilities that mark them as special. During a live 2015 broadcast of ESPN's Monday Night Countdown, former Bears coach Mike Ditka very well may have released the hounds, but damned if he'll ever come clean. As the New York Daily News reports, Ditka did his best to deny perpetrating the foul faux pas, but we have ears, and sportscasters have noses. Chris Carter's expression following Ditka's inferred infraction says everything we legally cannot. Ditka's alleged cheese-cutting wasn't so easily swept under the carpet, either. But there are also echoes of Neo's red pill revelations, in which he's awakened to the truth of the world in which he's been residing. Word of Fartgate rapidly rumbled through mainstream media, with NBC primly suggesting the presumed Keister cacophony raised some eyebrows. Bleacher Report called Ditka's alleged underburp thunderous, while GQ assumed the role of body language experts, sagely dissecting how he leans off his chair and the arch of his eyebrows as irrefutable proof of the poot. In MFKZ, Angelino doesn't have to take any pills, but instead learns that his world is not all it seems after being hit by a truck. Meanwhile, Uproxx abandoned any pretense of civility at all, simply calling Ditka's suspected stinker a big old fart. As the media fanned the flames, Ditka felt the need to defend himself to the reputable Chicago Sun-Times. "It wasn't me," he adamantly told the newspaper. After his revelation, he and his mysterious female companion Luna wind up getting chased by men wearing black suits, another plot point that may feel very familiar to Matrix fans.
Always be my maybe. While the Matrix trilogy does indeed contain a love story, it's far from what you'd consider a rom-com, so we wouldn't blame you for wondering what the light-hearted Ali Wong and Randall Park film Always Be My Maybe is doing on this list. Look no further than the cameo to end all cameos, Neo himself, Keanu Reeves, playing a fictionalized version of himself. Always Be My Maybe revolves around two childhood friends, Marcus Park and Sasha Wong, who reconnect as adults and become friends, although Marcus hopes they might eventually rekindle the almost romance that fizzled out when they were teenagers. Standing in his way, though, is Sasha's new boyfriend, Keanu Reeves. Reeves seems to have a blast leaning into every ridiculous rumor and caricature about what he is really like, whether it's basking in the slow-motion fawning of high-end restaurant patrons as he enters a room, to asking his server for an entree that plays with the concept of time and subsequently weeping as he eats it, to getting absurdly intense in a game of truth or dare. Believe me, I'm to the point in my life where it doesn't matter. For what it's worth, Ditka doesn't give a toot about any of our sulfurous suspicions, either. I don't care what they think. It's a far cry from his role as Neo in The Matrix, but it's a great reminder of what a fun performer Reeves can be. Mindgamers in The Matrix, Neo learns that his reality is merely an artificial construct created by machines to keep his mind calm while they use his body as a battery. They can think anything they want. Was Nancy Grace responsible for this booty cough? You're really tempting fate with a name like Nancy Grace. Once Neo is awakened by a group of other humans, their attempts to overthrow the machines take them in and out of the Matrix, weaving between reality and their digital world. While competing in a 2011 episode of Dancing with the Stars, the bombastic TV journalist may have succumbed to an on-air butt blurt, and right on the heels of her much ballyhooed wardrobe malfunction the week before. While The Matrix isn't real in the traditional sense, one advantage of going inside it is that Neo and the other characters are able to upload various skills directly into their brains, much like installing a computer program, which they're then able to utilize within the Matrix without having to spend time training. This is similar to what happens in the sci-fi film Mindgamers, which follows a group of brilliant young students after they create a wireless neural network which creates a collective consciousness for anyone connected to it. Shortly after Grace waltzed to Moon River with dance partner Tristan McManus, former DWTS co-host Brooke Burke giddily interviewed the duo. As a perk of connecting to the network, users can transfer motor skills, enabling anyone connected to the technology to access an almost limitless array of new talents. But of course, such an amazing breakthrough isn't without its downsides, and the characters in Mindgamers soon find themselves swept up in a plan much more sinister than they'd ever imagined. Singularity. While some of the films on this list only share tangential similarities with The Matrix, with Singularity, the likeness is easily observable. That's when Grace seemingly suffered a severe case of moon quivers, offering up what could be her most noxious soundbite to date. As the smoke cleared, Grace did her damnedest to deflect blame, telling TMZ she'd launched an investigation into the crime. As an ear witness on the scene, I can absolutely exonerate Tristan, myself and Brooke, she alleged, adding, however, the rest of the cast, seated just inches away, all remain under grave suspicion. But as the old saying goes, whoever pointed the finger let it linger. In a sick-making subplot, adult site Clips for Sale reached out to ABC in a letter, hoping to acquire the rights to this potentially flatulent footage per the AV Club. The pornographers were courting Flatulophiliacs, aka starring Julian Schaffner and John Cusack. Singularity takes place nearly a century after a robotics company has invented a supercomputer that was programmed to end all war, and did so by attempting to wipe out humanity. Fart fanatics, a presumably raucous crew we hope is only a small subset of their customer base. Clips for Sale assured ABC brass they possessed a real nose for the news, reminding them that passing gas is as natural as breathing, and our members are waiting with bated breath. We strongly suspect they're still waiting. Whoopi Goldberg to Whoopi Cushion, Hold My Beer. In 2014, one of the View's Hot Topic segments abruptly devolved into a Hot Wind hoedown, courtesy of Whoopi Goldberg. The humans who have survived are constantly hunted by robots determined to exterminate them, and believe their only hope is a hidden human settlement called Aurora. Of course, Matrix fans are no strangers to films about robots attempting to destroy the last remnants of humanity, or about small groups of hopeful humans doing everything in their power to attempt to find a safe haven in the midst of all the destruction. Additionally, the main character of Singularity is also a bit of a chosen one, although the specifics of his story differ significantly from Neo's. So if you're a fan of the futuristic humans versus robots premise of The Matrix, and you like jumping in on a story where the humans have already suffered major losses before it even starts, look no further than Singularity. The Bye-Bye Man. If your favorite character in the Matrix trilogy was Trinity, played by Carrie-Anne Moss, you may want to check out The Bye-Bye Man, a supernatural horror movie in which Moss plays a detective determined to uncover the truth about a deadly curse. The Malodorous misstep, which reportedly occurred in front of guest Ashanti, inspired Rosie O'Donnell to grumble, "You know those breakfast burritos." And talk about gaslighting, a priggish ABC spokesperson pointedly told the New York Daily News, "The noise was clearly a sound effect which prompted a fun, spontaneous reaction from the co-hosts." The NYDN claimed Goldberg as something of serial tutor who previously treated viewers to two on-air outbursts in May and December 2011. The Bye-Bye Man follows a group of friends who decide to rent an old house, but soon begin experiencing a series of odd occurrences none of them can explain. Aptly enough, one incident occurred during a visit from Dr. Accidentally. They wind up summoning a malevolent entity called the Bye-Bye Man, whose curse causes its victims to lose their minds and eventually die. Moss's role in the Bye-Bye Man isn't one of the main leads who's tormented by the curse, but the detective sent to investigate the strange happenings at the house. Sadly, she doesn't have any of the vast array of skills she possesses in The Matrix as she conducts her investigation, but instead is forced to rely solely on her wits and experience. However, just like Trinity, Moss's character in The Bye-Bye Man is smart, resourceful, and driven to achieve her goals, making The Bye-Bye Man a solid pick if you want to see Moss stretch her skills outside of punching and kicking. The Titan. While some of the picks on this list contain obvious parallels to The Matrix in either their cast members or certain plot points, others are more akin to tonal cousins, evoking a similar feel without necessarily lining up on any of the specifics. Such is the case with the 2018 film The Titan, which stars Sam Worthington, Taylor Schilling, and Tom Wilkinson, and centers around an attempt to adapt humans to the conditions on Saturn's moon Titan. Set in 2048, the Titan finds Earth increasingly uninhabitable, prompting scientists to explore outlandish new ideas in the hopes of preserving the human race. Worthington plays Rick Jansen, a pilot who volunteers to have his body modified to withstand Titan's harsh atmosphere and extreme temperatures. Although the initial stages of the experiment seem to go well, Rick gradually begins to act out dangerously as a result of the procedure, frightening his wife Schilling, while the doctor conducting the experiments Wilkinson pushes forward with a dark agenda of his own. The Titan may not have much in common with The Matrix's highly choreographed action sequences and existential digital themes, but it may be a good pick if you're searching for more films about how humans adapt when faced with extinction, or if you just like stories about protagonists who finish the film with abilities they never dreamed of possessing at the beginning. Mute if you finished The Matrix hungering for more neo-noir sci-fi, but aren't picky about how well the particulars of the story line up, then look no further than Mute, a 2018 film starring Alexander Skarsgård, Paul Rudd, and Justin Theroux. Oz during a segment dedicated to the subject of flatulence. Skarsgård stars as Leo, a man who was left mute as the result of a childhood accident. In the wake of Goldberg's implied on-air biscuit, a visibly horrified Barbara Walters quipped, "Where is standards and practices when you need 'em?" When Claire Danes visited The View in 2011, she intently deconstructed her Showtime drama Homeland. "I think it's one of the first stories that really talks about our experience post-9/11, she mused. Leo works as a bartender, and works alongside his girlfriend, Nadira Sainab Saleh, until she mysteriously disappears, prompting Leo to search for her. His search for Nadira leads to Leo getting tangled up with a number of shady characters, including a pair of American doctors who perform black market cybernetic surgery. The specifics of Mute may sound like a far cry from The Matrix, but the films both have slick visual styles, futuristic settings, and unsettling atmosphere.
Shortly after, Goldberg offered a compelling counterpoint that qualifies as prestige TV in its own right. She offered this folksy apology in the wake of the flatulence, "Oh, excuse me, I think I just blew a little frog out of there." Goldberg's penchant for parfing even inspired a think piece in 2014, with the Daily Dot offering this particularly hot take. Whoopi Goldberg reminds us that women fart too, and that's okay. Regis Philbin's chair, "Don't look at me," we're convinced this one is some sort of deliberate visual pun. An audio-visual pun? Otherwise, what are the odds Regis Philbin unwittingly let one rip while sitting next to someone named Kelly Ripa? An unusually juicy Live with Regis and Kelly clip from November 14, 2006 features Ripa introducing a new segment called Kelly's Thanksgiving Secrets Revealed, when Regis lets loose a secret all his own. This particular secret sounds like a bubble-wrapped tuba emitting a sharp B-flat. Reepa giggles at Philbin's unexpected outburst and then valiantly steers the show back to safety, expertly chirping her way past the embarrassing peccadillo. Meanwhile, Philbin meditatively stares into space, unconsciously closing his coat like a man with something to hide. Additionally, while it's not central to most of the plot, Mute's use of cybernetic implants and technological manipulation of the human body feels thematically adjacent to how the Matrix uses technology to artificially enhance the skills and abilities of its heroes. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. The Matrix was groundbreaking in its story and effects, but it also ushered in a new era of Hollywood fight choreography. Snapping out of his reverie, he nonchalantly asks, "What is all this about?" Alas, we all know the answer to that one: it's about our bodies, and the way they ultimately betray us. An anonymous tip has brought our attention to another suspect live with Regis and Kelly clip. This potential paint peeler took place during a 2014 visit from the late zookeeper and conservationist Steve Irwin, who delights the co-hosts with the cuddly antics of a baby kangaroo. The martial arts-heavy fight scenes in The Matrix feel almost balletic, and the digital reality within The Matrix allowed the choreography to play with time and physics in a way that real-world fights typically don't. Seeing as the stage here is stuffed with 4 potential suspects, Philbin, Reepa, Irwin, and a wayward Joey, there's ultimately no way to finger the culprit with any surety. That said, Philbin's cough sounds like a classic tell to us. Larry King's colonic calliope. What's the term? Right. Veteran television host Larry King reportedly kicked off one live interview on a hazardously wrong foot, and at a highly inopportune moment, on July 16, 2006, in the aftermath of Hezbollah rockets hitting Israel. King was joined by Republican Representative Dana Rohrabacher, who serves as the chairman, as of this writing, of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Europe, Eurasia, and Emerging Threats. And on the subject of emerging threats, the gravity of the situation was significantly undermined when King seemingly experienced some on-air under thunder. The gusty gaffe was met with an equally audible scoff from Rohrabacher. Adweek maintained this was business as usual, with the usually even-keeled publication reduced to all caps for emphasis. Larry King was notorious for breaking wind on the air. Ultimately, King may be amused by all this noise. In October 2015, he asked the Twitterverse, "Why is a fart funny?" a question he asked Rob Riggle in January 2018. Meanwhile, according to GQ, rumors of a flatulence problem have long dogged King, with whispers of a fan he kept under his desk to whisk away airborne antagonists, as well as a hidden fart button he used to mute trouser trumpets during live broadcasts. The latter must have gotten a lot of use, as Gawker reported King possibly farted during a Star Jones interview and while shooting a documentary about CNN anchors back in the day. Movie fight scenes in a post-Matrix world looked markedly different than those that came before, making The Matrix a true turning point in action filmmaking. However, outside of Hollywood, Chinese wuxia films offered up beautiful martial arts choreography in worlds that play fast and loose with the laws of physics for many decades before The Matrix was even a glimmer in the Wachowskis' eyes. In 2000, the wuxia film Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon achieved mainstream critical and commercial success in the United States, leading to a sequel, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, in 2016. Reportedly, they would have to stop rolling every 10 to 15 minutes until King stopped roiling. X Factor judge Cheryl Cole blows raspberries. In November 2010, The Mirror dutifully investigated pop star Cheryl Cole potentially parping on an episode of The X Factor. The ignominious incident occurred as she sized up competitor Cher Lloyd, somewhat undermining her authority as an arbiter of beautiful noise. Not hurting for puns, the tabloid pointed out that it's not clear whether Cole really perpetrated the act. The story follows Yu Shu Lin, Michelle Yeoh's character from the first film, and although Sword of Destiny didn't manage to hit the heights of the original film, and drifts away from its wuxia roots by having the characters speak English instead of Chinese, it offers up plenty in the way of beautifully choreographed, physics-defying fight scenes, which may be enough to satiate Matrix fans searching for intricate, almost dreamlike martial arts action. The signal. Although Keanu Reeves is the star of the Matrix trilogy, many of the supporting characters are just as interesting and compelling as Neo, and none is more fascinating than Neo's mentor Morpheus, played by Lawrence Fishburne. But is it ever? Mirror staffers worked overtime to get to the bottom of the murky business, reportedly scouring the video a dozen times, but they couldn't figure out whether the suspicious squirt was coming from her bumhole or not. Meanwhile, competing tabloid OK! Also caught a whiff of the scandal, pinching its nose and diving headfirst into the story, wondering, did anyone else hear Cheryl Cole fart after Cher Lloyd's performance? The Parachute singer is no stranger to such accusations. In 2012, she aired a particularly arid grievance with The Sun, telling the tab that she's regularly blamed for mid-air mud ducks. I know they're thinking, Cheryl Cole thinks it's okay to fart on a plane as she's special, and it's so not true. In the same interview, she wished aloud for a product that we're now praying to the gods of Shark Tank to invent. There should be a sort of aerosol that can be sprayed into the air and it would pinpoint the guilty person. One night back in November 2010, Cole must have been relieved that no such product exists. Ben Carson has something to add as this next morsel illustrates, the tenuous thread that once kept our lives from capsizing into unfettered satire has eroded. On July 29, 2015, StubHill News posted a story emblazoned with a highly engaging headline, Ben Carson suspends campaign after press conference fart. But don't get too excited, StubHill News is a satirical website, or, as they worryingly refer to themselves on their About page, a satire website. While the other humans who have escaped the Matrix are initially a little uncertain about the untested new guy Morpheus has brought into their midst, Morpheus never wavers in his belief that Neo is the one, destined to save humanity from the machines. Alas, their story about Carson's campaign ending 7-second fart is bona fide fake fart news. Okay, now you can get excited. StubHill News might consider pivoting into psychic predictions, as their joke turned out to be oddly prescient. During a February 17, 2017 Fox News interview with professional gasbag Jeanine Pirro, Carson was discussing something called the Envision program, which reportedly aims to help poor people get off federal aid. He is so steadfast in his certainty that he's even willing to sacrifice himself, if it means that Neo gets a chance to survive. There are any number of solid contenders for the best character in The Matrix, and if your favorite is Morpheus, then it's worth checking out Fishburne in The Signal, which follows a group of MIT students who find themselves in a sterile underground research facility after seemingly being abducted by aliens. After reciting some scripture, the Bible says in the Book of Proverbs, without a vision, the people perish, the politician careened wildly off book, and divine intervention swept in. This nasty news nugget was overlooked by most outlets, but The Daily Show caught wind of Carson's purported pant puffer. Ben Carson didn't just fart on TV, host Trevor Noah deadpanned. He did it while quoting scripture. Noah ended the segment hoping Carson's penchant for $5,000 chairs means the furniture is equipped with sophisticated fart-suppressing technology. Barney Frank caused a media frenzy. According to NPR, there is a flawed perception that August is a slow news month, which possibly explain why such a to-do was made out of Barney Frank's alleged one-man salute on The Rachel Maddow Show. Guiding them through their experience is Dr. Wallace Damon Fishburne, who tries to help them adjust to their new reality, which is not all that it seems. In The Signal, while Fishburne steps again into the role of all-knowing teacher, his character's core drive is decidedly different from Morpheus, making The Signal both an apt follow-up watch and a curious contrast to The Matrix. Part of the brilliance of The Matrix is its complexity. It's an entertaining action movie, a love story, and a thought-provoking sci-fi film all wrapped up in one mind-blowing package.
Because The Matrix has so many layers to appreciate, what you want to watch after it depends in large part on which of those layers you most enjoyed. The Washington Post called it a classic case of potty politics, wondering, did Barney Frank fart live on television? Judging by our ears, the answer is a resigned almost definitely. On August 8, 2011, Representative If it was the idea of an advanced artificial intelligence keeping humanity trapped, then you may want to check out the 2018 sci-fi thriller Tau. Unlike Neo, who begins The Matrix unaware that he's imprisoned by an artificial intelligence, Tau opens with Julia Micah Monroe fully aware that she's been abducted. Barney Frank left audiences, and, we imagine, Maddow, with much to think about. How can Congress create jobs and curb the country's spending in Afghanistan and Iraq? Also, was that really Frank's Randy rectal percussion on live TV, or had the leg of his chair pierced a scavenging mouse? According to Media.et, right-leaning website Daily Caller treated the story like an full-on editorial emergency, with the resultant story by Jeff Poore including the remarkable disclosure that C.J. Chiaramella contributed to this report. While Media.et sounds convinced the sound was ultimately Frank shifting on a noisy chair, the Daily Caller felt he'd unequivocally farted, and rang his office for comment. That left Adweek in awe of the Daily Caller's editorial brazenness to the point that they asked Chiaramella how he broached the delicate business of Frank's alleged airshow. "I just asked to confirm a quote," Chiaramella responded, "which, you know, is pretty much the truth. I didn't think I'd get a return call if I asked straight up, wondering if Representative Frank farted on air last night. Holler back." Julianne Hough falls victim to the TWTS curse. Live television really isn't for the faint of heart. A week after Marie Osmond reportedly passed out on Dancing with the Stars in October 2007, fellow contestant Julianne Hough pictured gamely one-upped her by making a considerable on-air rumpus. According to The Hollywood Gossip, Hough and her dancing partner Helio Castroneves had just caught wind of the judges' scores when she allegedly unfurled a fertile fanny flapper. Following Julianne's implied eruption, her brother Derek reportedly showed his support by erupting in laughter. And this just in from the "Three Makes a Trend" department, we're now officially afraid of the Dancing with the Stars cafeteria. On top of Hough's Huffer and the aforementioned Nancy Grace grievance, a taped 2017 segment starring Lindsay Arnold finds the professional dancer and choreographer letting off some serious steam. However, there's a man, not a machine, behind her imprisonment, and the AI he initially used to torment her, Tao, voiced by Gary Oldman, winds up becoming Julia's unlikely ally. As the film progresses, Julia and Tao work to gain her freedom, at great cost. It's almost a mirror version of The Matrix, in which the robots are keeping humanity trapped for their own purposes. In Tao, Tao initially helps keep Julia trapped, but it's at a human's behest. And as the machine becomes more aware, in a trajectory opposite that of Agent Smith, Hugo Weaving, instead of becoming more sinister, it becomes more benevolent. Code 8. The Matrix may not be your typical superhero film, but in many ways, it feels formed out of the same mold as more traditional superhero fare. Its protagonist starts the film more or less a normal guy, stumbles into a world of idealistic heroes fighting against a formidable evil, gets powers, goes toe-to-toe with an unbeatable supervillain, and emerges galvanized by his trials as a revered symbol of freedom and hope. He even flies and starts going by a cool new code name. Let's face it, he may not wear tights or a cape, but Neo is indisputably a superhero. If you loved Neo's super-hero's journey in The Matrix, then you may enjoy Code 8, starring real-life cousins Robbie and Stephen Amell, who have both also played superheroes on the CW shows The Flash and Arrow, alongside Fast and Furious franchise fan favorite Sung Kang. Right in the face of her dance partner, former Chicago Cubs catcher David Ross. Equal parts grace and grotesquerie, the incident finds Arnold performing a cartwheel and handstand with inimitable elan, culminating in a crowd-killing kaboom. Evidently not above such things, CBS giddily covered the story in an article headlined, "David Ross's partner from Dancing with the Stars farts in his face" video. The network clearly knows rich content when they see it. Did Max Kellerman cough fart? Clearing his throat, or making one float? On April 15, 2019, several online publications were trying to get to the bottom of what Deadspin called a potential cough fart.
This wasn't your average alleged cough fart, either, because this potential cough fart was possibly perpetuated by sports commentator Max Kellerman, a co-host on ESPN's First Take. The story of Code 8 takes place in a world in which people with superhuman abilities, known as powers, live in poverty and struggle to meet their basic needs. During an already noisy conversation centered around pro basketball player Kevin Durant, Kellerman quite possibly succumbed to an on-air Heine hiccup, making matters altogether murkier by attempting to conceal the fizzling flatus. As Deadspin noted, it very much sounded like someone coughed as a maneuver to cover up a fart. The situation may have been even more dire than that. One eagle-eyed and bat-eared Redditor claimed that Kellerman burped out the wrong end a total of 7 times during the broadcast. Robbie Amell stars as Connor Reed, a man with electrokinetic powers forced into a life of crime in order so that he can afford medical treatment for his dying mother, while Stephen Amell plays the power who oversees his criminal activity. This intrepid fan even time-stamped each presumed sphincter siren, noting that the alleged anal acoustics ranged from a little squish to a bit quiet. In its own unflinching story, AOL pointed out that Kellerman had some explaining to do, and explain away he did. He appeared on the Dan Le Batard show the next day per Deadspin, and denied that any of this ever happened. "No, I did not fart on the set. I have farted in the past, though." That is true. Plot-wise, Code 8 isn't incredibly close to The Matrix, but if you enjoyed The Matrix's non-traditional take on superpowers, you'll likely enjoy Code 8 as well. Shanghai Fortress. While The Matrix was groundbreaking for its special effects and mesmerizing action sequences, it was also innovative in its premise, which put a new spin on classic post-apocalyptic humanity versus, but that's not one of the instances. Well, by at least one tally, it's 7 of the instances. Paul Pierce pierced our eardrums allegedly. Is there trouble brewing at ESPN? It certainly sounds like it. Extinction tropes with its added layers of subjective reality. However, while you'd be hard-pressed to find many movies that offer perspectives as unique and mind-bending as The Matrix, there are a number of films that entertain using the same basic building blocks. One example is the Chinese sci-fi film Shanghai Fortress, which takes place only a handful of years in the future, after aliens have laid waste to humanity in their efforts to seize control of Earth's energy resources. Shanghai Fortress follows a group of brave souls who join together to make a final stand against the aliens, sacrificing everything in the hope of giving humanity a chance to survive. It differs from The Matrix in many of the specifics, not the least of which is that the existential threat in The Matrix is one of humanity's own making, and not some sort of external invading force. According to TMZ, former NBA star and current ESPN commentator Paul Pierce full-on farted on co-host Michelle Beadle during a broadcast of Off the Clock on May 8, 2019. His presumed past gas didn't quite pass under the radar, either. However, if what you enjoyed most about The Matrix was watching groups of survivors nobly band together against overwhelming odds in the face of extinction, then Shanghai Fortress may offer up the same sorts of inspirational feels. Nasty, Beadle commented, later quipping, "We're trapped in a room, y'all." Sports analyst Jalen Rose, who was also present, wryly observed that Michelle Beadle is smelling something in the air. Following the segment, ESPN producer Mike Goldfarb gave Pierce the benefit of the doubt, tweeting that Paul may or may not have farted at the start of the taping. Doing her part to clear up any confusion, Beadle responded, "No. He did. Period." And yet, the New York Post poo-pooed Pierce's presumed cheese squeeze, reviewing the brassy brouhaha like it was a lukewarm installment of a middling Hollywood franchise. The Daily Paper ultimately felt Pierce's alleged booty belch couldn't quite hold a candle to Max Kellerman's presumed parping. He may or may not have squeezed out an on-air fart the month before. ESPN's Fartgate sequel lacks all the drama, the article noted sourly, adding that round 2 wasn't nearly as interesting. Well, there's no accounting for taste. Joe Swash really let loose on Loose Women. Does the name Joe Swash ring a bell? While he's yet to make waves in America, he's evidently breaking plenty of wind on the other side of the pond, on live television, no less. The English actor and TV personality, perhaps best known for his stint on the British soap opera EastEnders, made quite a memorable ruckus during a February 12, 2019 appearance on the long-running live magazine show Loose Women.
While sharing his views on romantic dinners, love notes, and other matters of the heart, Swash was rudely interrupted by an altogether different part of his anatomy. You can clearly hear what Digital Spy calls a loud farting noise, after which Swash begins to look a little sheepish. This alleged flufferdoodle reverberated through social media channels, with one startled viewer tweeting, "Did Joe Swash just fart live on TV? Was he bought up with my dad in our council house?" The answer to one of those questions seems to be a resounding yes. What's more, this apparently wasn't the first time Swash emitted some thunder from down under while filming a TV show. He also tooted his own horn while filming an episode of the children's show The Dog Ate My Homework, which you can hear quite clearly in an outtake. Why this boisterous blooper never made it to air is anyone's guess. Leslie Nielsen knew how to wake up morning shows British people are embarrassed easily, a fact that actor Leslie Nielsen apparently knew how to exploit. On June 20, 1991, The Airplane star perked up 2 daytime hosts with what sounded like some impromptu rump ruckus. The on-air awkwardness went down on UK morning show TVAM, and the hosts didn't let it slide, even asking Nielsen if he needed to use the little ladies' room. Later, Ulrika Jonsson presented the weather in Wales, quipping, "Sorry about this, we're suffering from wind here as well." It's quite possible Nielsen was merely practicing Dadaist humour. He also seemingly singed his pants on the British chat show Wogan in 1989, shortly after assuring host Terry Wogan, "I'm a man who has background and education." To be honest, he evidently farted on talk shows rather often. In the grand tradition of "pull my finger," the late actor could have been pulling your proverbial leg. In 2015, Ted Danson told the AV Club that Nielsen owned a fart machine. He was so obsessed with the gadget, he was reportedly booted off a plane after an onslaught of manufactured booty blunders. Another working theory, Nielsen's tailwinds were genuine, and he purchased this clever contraption to cover his tracks. Alas, Nielsen took the truth, and his love of potty humor, to the grave. According to Snopes, his gravestone in Fort Lauderdale's Evergreen Cemetery contains one final fart joke. In lieu of the traditional RIP, Nielsen opted for, "Let 'er rip." A moment of silence? Not a chance. Rich Galen's Gassy Gale during a March 2016 appearance on AC 360 with Anderson Cooper, outspoken Republican strategist Rich Galen made headlines by calling out the show on its around-the-clock coverage of Donald Trump's presidential campaign, leading the host to acknowledge that Trump had indeed set the agenda, from almost the moment he entered the race. It'd be a shame if that rabble-rousing performance overshadowed what might be Galen's real on-air coup d'état. During a 2012 interview with Cooper, the former press secretary to Dan Quayle reportedly popped quite the impressive Fluffy. But do our ears deceive us? In the interest of due diligence, the folks at Adweek went ahead and showed the clip to dozens of people. Their gallery of pundits and media commentators acknowledged it did sound quite a bit like Galen had uncorked a particularly fine vintage that year. Adweek even reached out to Galen for a statement, but never received a response. Perhaps the Republican strategist felt he'd already made enough noise for one news cycle.